Hey guys, it's Alex, and today I wanted to talk about the Jeff Nippard situation. So I've never really been a drama channel, never really talked about drama, never tried to really get myself involved into any drama, but this kind of struck a chord into something I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, so I thought today it might make a bit of sense. So if you're not aware of the situation, I'll just kind of briefly explain it and then give my thoughts on it and then kind of talk bigger picture here. There's two people involved in this situation. It's Jeff Nippard and a bodybuilder named Mike Van Wyck. So Jeff Nippard is a science-based lifter, YouTube, kind of all of the above. He's a content creator that makes science-based videos that introduces like new and different ways to perform exercises for maximum muscle and strength growth. Mike Van Wyck, on the other hand, is a bodybuilder, IFBB pro, very large guy, and he also is a content creator as well. So Mike Van Wyck and Jeff Nippard, both content creators, but they kind of come from different ends of the spectrum. Jeff Nippard, still a decent frame, but smaller guy, makes science-based videos, and Mike Van Wyck, bodybuilder, much bigger, also makes videos, but not necessarily the same like science-based content as Jeff. So this whole thing kind of started when Mike Van Wyck made, I think it was an Instagram reel, I'll have it play, but essentially saying that why are these science-based lifters, didn't name Jeff specifically, but basically hinted at it, why are these science-based lifters, like Jeff, so small or like have such a small physique if they know so much and they have so much knowledge?
We all know the science-based guys. Tell me if you would describe their physique as excellent, average, or mediocre. Guarantee it's not an excellent. Science guys really need to answer this question before anything. Why is it that you remain so mediocre, yet you know so much? Bodybuilding, you can be like this big or this short in some cases, maybe this short in other cases. It's always short though, no taller than Bassett. Somehow you're an expert on muscle, but you don't have any.
Then after Jeff Nippard replied to him directly and said that essentially what separates him from the big bodybuilders is his lack of steroid use. He says that bodybuilders, what kind of determines how big they are is their training regimen, what they eat, genetics, and ultimately steroid use. Because if you want to be a competitive bodybuilder, it's kind of a given. And if you don't believe that or you didn't know that, I'm sorry to break it to you, that is the God honest truth.
I know I don't need to respond to this, but since he asked, using science-based training, I won Natural Bodybuilding Nationals. I earned my pro card on the most competitive stage in the World Natural Bodybuilding Federation. I placed second in my first bodybuilding pro show, and while doing this, I set the Canadian record on the bench press, and I set a provincial record on the squat. I currently weigh 180 pounds at 5'5" tall, which is pretty close to my natural limit given my height and my genetics. That's all besides the point though, because facts are facts. Information is either right or wrong. It doesn't matter who that information is coming from. If the people with the best physiques had the most knowledge, why would C-Bum need a coach? He has the best physique on the planet. Who could possibly know more than him? Well, it's pretty obvious that bodybuilding success comes from great genetics and really hard training, and if you want to make it in the IFBB, steroid use. I like science because it gives me more confidence in what actually works and what doesn't, because it isolates variables. If you trust a big guy's advice over scientific studies, that doesn't bother me. I listen to what big guys have to say too.
And let me preface by saying that I am not friends. I do not know any of the people involved in this video. I've never met either one of them, but I think Jeff's response was pretty level-headed, just kind of called it as it is. And I just assumed that would be that. It actually turns out that Mike Van Wyck and Jeff Nippard work out at the exact same gym. So in the following days, Mike approaches Jeff in the gym, and from what we can gather so far, seems like without any sort of stir or anything, just goes up to Jeff and throat punches him and hits him and he falls down.
Damn.
I've also heard that Jeff ended up going to the hospital as a result of this. He said he throat punched him twice and said he was gonna kill him. I don't know how much of this is true. I wasn't there obviously, but that's just kind of a brief description as to what happened in this whole situation. Now, I have several issues with this whole situation. Like I said, I don't know any of these people. I've never met them. I have no favorability towards one person or the other. I know the bare minimum about them. I've seen Jeff's content online. I've never really seen Mike's, but I've heard his name before. So these are people I know very little about. So I'm not taking sides. I'm not friends with either of these people. That plays no factor in this whole situation. My whole problem, well, there's a variety of problems. First of all, physical violence is obviously uncalled for. I work out. I love to work out. Sometimes we get a little angsty in the gym. Sometimes we get a little hyped up. We could be easily angered or easily triggered or easily upset, or we might just, I don't know. But in no situation is that calling for violence. I think that's honestly super pathetic. I think it's super weak. And when you look at the size differences between the two human beings, size is not absolutely everything, especially if you watch any sort of fighting, but it definitely is something. That's why they have weight classes. And Jeff is tiny in comparison to Mike Van Wyck. And that's not to diss on Jeff's physique. It's very impressive, but he's 5'5" compared to a huge 6 foot and above bodybuilder. I don't think it's a profound statement to say that that's completely uncalled for and unnecessary. And I think it's just really weak. You can totally have a disagreement with somebody and you could make a response video, you can state how you feel, but I think just resorting to violence, especially when nobody really antagonized this, is just really weak, really uncalled for, and I think it makes the fitness industry kind of look bad. I just think it's a really poor reflection and it kind of sucks to see, honestly. The other thing that really bothers me is Mike's original statement about these science-based lifters. Don't get me wrong, I have my fair share of critique about these science-based lifters. I think people try to be profound, unique, or hyperbolic in hopes to get more views. So I don't think necessarily everything requires reinventing the wheel. I don't think you need to do weird exercises every time you work out. I do think a lot of these science-based lifters are desperately sometimes trying to get views by creating exercises or making things up that aren't really necessary. You know how there's the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I think that's where some of these science-based lifters annoy me a little bit. And it's just a little bit of a personal pet peeve. I understand if you're trying to make a name in social media and online, getting views is ultimately what you need at the end of the day to make a living. But I don't necessarily think you have to reinvent the wheel with every exercise. Some of these exercises have been done for years. They're tried, tested, and true. And with a really hard work regimen, discipline, and good eating habits, you can see amazing results, and you don't need to try something totally weird looking in the gym to get better results. And while I do feel that way some of the time, I also think it's not entirely true. Like I said, I don't know Jeff Nippard, but he does make really high quality educational videos that help people. And he is also natty, which I think is important because in today's social media climate and culture, I would say 80 to 90% of the fitness influencers that you watch or look at or subscribe to online are taking some form of performance enhancing drugs, whether that's testosterone, tren, dianabol, anadrol, SARMs, pro hormones. Most of these people, and sometimes it seems like all, are taking some form of steroids. And somebody like Jeff, being 180 pounds at 5'5" while pretty lean is very impressive. And I don't think people give enough credit for that, how impressive that is. To achieve that physique, that frame naturally is very, very impressive. And personally, I think it is much more impressive than a lot of the much bigger bodybuilders you see online. And the reason why I have so much problem with Mike's original statement is that you hear this kind of echoed online. People say, yeah, this person might be taking steroids, but it still requires hard work. You still have to work really hard. And this is gonna offend probably a lot of people, but that's simply not the case. I'm not saying that Mike Van Wyck doesn't work hard. I'm not saying that a ton of IFBB pros don't work hard, but steroids are extremely powerful. And you do not have to work that hard to look insane while taking them. Now, people can get mad, they can get offended. I don't really care, honestly, but I just think it needs to be said because people are given a pass because they just excuse that they're also hardworking. And this is something I've never really talked about online because I didn't really see the time and place, but I can personally attest to this because I have personally taken steroids. I have done 3 cycles of SARMs and 2 cycles of steroids. I've taken RAD 140, LGD 4033, I've taken Ostarine, I've taken Anavar, and I've taken testosterone. And if you know anything about steroids or PEDs, those are some of the absolute most minimal steroids you can take. They are the most studied and they provide you the least results. And even with that, they are insanely powerful, insanely powerful. For reference, when I took steroids, I did work hard. I will say that. I did work hard because I wanted to look good, and if I was gonna do something that I thought was maybe a bad mistake or had some consequences along the way, I was at least gonna do everything in my power to get all of the benefits I could from taking them. But when I took them, I gained 30 pounds of muscle in just a few months. Currently, I weigh 140 pounds and I'm about 10% body fat. When I took them, I was 172 pounds and 7% body fat. And while I'm 30 pounds less now, I work way harder now than I ever have in my entire life, and I don't even come close to looking how I did when I took steroids, because steroids do a lot. They're one of the most powerful drugs in the world, and they are very hard to get off of because of the benefits they provide. I made a decision a few years ago that I just didn't want to continue down that path. Yes, I could look great. Yes, it would be easy to sell workout programs because I look massive. But at the end of the day, it messes with you in so many ways. It messes with your hair, it messes with your body, it messes with your skin. And I would rather be kind of jacked and have my hair than be bald and super jacked. Now, that might not be everybody's goal. Some people may have different preferences, and I totally respect that. But I am much more content today having a natural physique and living a life where I'm not in constant fear of my health or my well-being. And I know it's easy. When you see people that are big, inherently you want to take their advice because I want to look like that. I'm going to trust their word. I want to look like that. And I do think that a lot of bodybuilders that do take steroids provide good advice. I'm not dismissing them of providing good advice. But just because somebody isn't as big as somebody else does not make them less effective, does not make them less smart, does not make them less knowledgeable, and people like Jeff deserve to have the audience that they do. I respect the living hell out of people like Jeff Nippard that don't care about taking steroids. They simply want to have the best physique they can naturally and echo that same sentiment to their audience. I think this is a huge problem on social media online now. Everybody, it seems like, is taking steroids and all of a sudden they have the voice of God. So essentially what I'm getting at is I think that people like Mike making statements that these science-based lifters have these average physique just doesn't lead towards a productive or a healthy path, because it will just encourage people to keep taking PEDs that shouldn't. I don't have anything against people that take PEDs. I did it myself. I understand the benefits. I understand why people would take them. But I think simply too many people are taking them today. Trend kind of started out as this like meme online, and now I'm meeting people that are lifting for 3 to 6 months and then immediately hopping on steroids. And then they end up depressed. They end up with acne scars, they end up losing their hair, they have skin problems, and these aren't misnomers. These aren't like every once in a while. This happens a lot, and they are the well-studied side effects of steroids. So I just think this whole situation is amplifying this problem and dissing people that have worked very hard to provide good solid education to their audience for people that don't want to take steroids, because the majority of people should not be taking them. You can look great. Sure, I'm not as big as I used to be, and there's a lot of days I wish I was, but I like the way I look. Do I wish I could get bigger? Absolutely. Who doesn't? But I'm lean, I have a decent physique, I don't look bad, and I can go to sleep at night not in fear of my health or my well-being. I don't have to wake up every day and hope that my nipples aren't growing, and that my hair is falling out, and that my skin is turning to leather, and that I don't hit my sciatic nerve and paralyze myself while injecting. There are so many problems with steroids, and while they are extremely powerful, they should 100% be avoided for most people, and I think they are promoted far too often. And once again, I understand if somebody is big, you want to take their advice. When I took steroids, I made way more money. I sold way more workout programs. I got way more views on social media. And yes, a lot of times that does get me down and it makes me sad because I wish I had all those same numbers I had before. But I made a decision a few years ago that I didn't want to continue down that path. I don't want to be a competitive bodybuilder. I love fitness, but to love fitness and not love my health didn't seem like the right choice to make. I want to be healthy. I want to live a long life. I want to keep my hair. I want my skin to look good, and I don't want to have constant anxiety about my health. Another reason why I stopped taking steroids too is because I did start to feel fraudulent in the fact that I could essentially, if I wanted to, eat whatever I want, not work out that hard, and still look better than 99% of people that aren't taking steroids. And as someone that sells workout programs, as someone that gives fitness advice, it just felt wrong. That doesn't mean that people that do take them and give advice are all morally wrong, but personally, I did feel that way a little bit, and it just didn't feel right. So aside from my own health risks, it just didn't feel right, and I'd rather be able to fully practice what I preach. And just because I'm smaller now than I used to be does not mean I'm less knowledgeable or have a less effective routine. If anything, it's caused me to work harder, and that is the case. I work out harder than I did before. I am more effective with my routine. I am constantly studying to try to learn more and to become a better influencer and a better athlete. I'm constantly looking to improve myself. I don't know everything. You know, I have a decent education in fitness, but I'm always learning and I'm always a student. And these science-based lifters provide a lot of value where bodybuilders simply don't. There's something I forgot to say in the video that I noticed when editing, and I think it's pretty important to say. The obvious difference here between your IFBB pro and a science-based natural lifter like Jeff is that by following somebody like Jeff's advice, you can actually look like them. And that doesn't mean that the IFBB pros don't provide good advice, but you won't look like them if you follow their advice. You simply will not, because if they are taking steroids, they are getting a huge level up, a huge cheat code, and yes, they can provide good advice, but at the end of the day, it is ultimately their genetics paired with the drugs that they are taking that are allowing them to have these physiques. That's not to diss on them, but I think you will get a lot farther and gain a lot more knowledge and see a lot better results by following somebody's advice that practices what they preach and looks the way they do because of the exercises that they are giving out and the information that they are sharing. So those are my long and honest thoughts about the whole Jeff Nippard, Mike Van Wyck situation. Like I said, I don't know these people. I have nothing against any of them, but Mike is clearly in the wrong for a multitude of reasons. And I think this whole dissing on science-based lifters things gets really dangerous, and I just don't think it's a path we should continue down, so I think it is worth calling out. Appreciate you guys watching this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.